And we're on. Node.js Foundation Build Working Group meeting for the 19th of July 2016. And there's an agenda somewhere. Sorry, I have no idea where it is. Somebody got the agenda in front of them.
It's in the issue.
I'm just trying to find the issue.
450.
Okay.
If it helps, I can paste it. Oh no, you got it?
Inviting Philip J to the build group.
Should we start with the startup, perhaps? Or just roll call?
Sure.
Okay. I can start then. So compared to, or since last time, I wasn't present last time, so I'm gonna do a bit over the last 4 or 5 weeks at least. But I'm mostly been doing work with the rsync, or the unencrypted machine as we call it, which is intended to host our unencrypted downloads. We have, like, older SSL clients aren't able to download Node.js, and rsync has also been a feature request, a long-standing feature request from bigger organizations to have a simpler mechanism of downloading our stuff. So we're at the final end of the run in terms of testing it out. We've gotten some feedback, and we have a machine that's currently being manually kept up to date, but we have a script that's meant to be deployed shortly. So the only change since the last time we spoke about it was that I have had a chat with a few of the people that's giving us feedback, and the main feedback is that the end of life, which we suggested being 1st of January 2020, will be extended till the 1st of January 2022. That means that we're adding 2 extra years to it, mostly because rsync is one of those things that you set and you deploy and you forget. And the feedback was in general that it was too short for them to commit larger mirrors to that. So unless anyone else has any objections to extend it with 2 years, I think that's what we should run with. I've also done some PPC work with Michael. We've had a fair amount of problems again with keeping the machines alive. It seems like it's a combination of the VM host and the software that is running in the stack. That seems to be the issue this time. The good news is, I guess Michael should talk more about this because he's done most of the job, but yeah, there's ongoing work with this, and I've done some minor stuff. I've also been working on replacing the TAP test suite with JUnit, similarly to what Miles been doing in Canary in the Goldmine. I still don't have a pull request up, but it's almost there. And this will probably be the biggest relief for our CI, and hopefully will make the CI run fast again. I think this is one of the biggest issues we have with memory consumption from the Jenkins host point of view. So,
sorry, where is this coming from, the JUnit being better? I've missed context here.
Okay, so the main problem, at least for what I've identified with our TAP plugin for Jenkins, is that it stores all output in build XML, and on every time you load a build XML, which is pretty much every page, imagine going to test commit Linux, it opens up the blob, parses the blob, and converts it into JUnit, which is the only input that the Jenkins test like admin can display. So if we switch to JUnit, it doesn't have to convert it, and it doesn't have to store it as a blob. So it'll be much, much quicker.
So that's when you open, like when you're configuring the task itself, which I've seen is very slow, or just looking at the test output?
Actually, pretty much everything. Like every time you touch the build XML, like every job, every state is stored in build XML, and then you have artifacts to each job. So like whenever it has to open and parse it, well, there you go. As you know, XML is parsed in whole, so.
So they've just shoved the test results in with the configuration of how the build is run?
Yeah, so like the build XML is like a state for that one. So it can be everything from 300 kilobytes to 500 on average to like 2 or 3 megs for the Linux jobs. So like the aggregated job for one test is huge, and it's crazy.
Right.
So where you see a lot of... Oh, sorry. Rod, go for it.
Is the is the JUnit stuff stored separately then? If we go to that.
It will likely, I mean, what we do is we write it to file, and then Jenkins comes and slurps it up. Hopefully, it will be stored separately, but even if it isn't, it's just a smaller XML, and it's, I mean, hopefully Miles knows more about how it's actually stored, but from my testing, it's just instant. It's no parse time to just open a test. So it's a huge improvement in terms of how quick it takes to load, for instance, test Linux.
Okay.
Yeah. So the experience that I had was like I was just getting frustrated. I don't know how many times y'all have tried to open the Canary in the Goldmine job, and you'll just get a white page staring you in the face for 30 seconds, and then eventually you'll get a 504, and then it will maybe load. And so I got like a hint from looking at the V8 test suite. Because they output JUnit by default, and I found that just going through all the V8 tests was really, really fast. So I just did this experiment with Canary in the Goldmine of getting a JUnit reporter, and yeah, it's like night and day going through the JUnit report results versus the TAP results, which is unfortunate because I much prefer TAP, but it's the reality of our Jenkins world we live in.
Yeah, JUnit.
The only difference is that it cannot be streamed. So my idea is just to do like a minimal progress indicator with console log, and then just store to file, and then tell Jenkins to store use the artifacts. That seems to be the only way. Yeah, sorry. So I've done some refactoring of the Fedora hosts. Started off as just adding Fedora 24, removing 21 and 20. But on suggestion from Rod, I actually took a look at how much we could share, and it's actually a lot. So I still have some work to do, just some minor stuff. But hopefully we'll land that this week. And that means we just have one job for all Fedora hosts. I've also added a bit of redundancy, especially with Fedora at Rackspace. They have generously provided us with another computing host in Sydney, which means that we now have US, Europe, and Sydney with equal amounts of quota, which is like 128 gigs of RAM and pretty generous amount. So generous went to very generous, which is great. So what I'll do is start moving some hosts over from DigitalOcean to there just to have a bit more quota on digital, seeing how we're closing in on our quota limit there. And finally, Rod invited me into this Jenkins 2 playground at our release, Jenkins. So I'll let Rod just run that through, but we did some minor work with CI release, and it seems like everything's working. So that's me.
Yeah, look, I'll carry on from that and just say that the Jenkins 2 thing was simply that I did an upgrade on the CI release machine, and we jumped from Jenkins 1.5 to 2.7. Johan discovered that it was because they had marked 2.7 as a new LTS line, and suddenly just put that into their apt repo, and so we got the upgrade automatically. It seems though that you have to opt into a explicit upgrade of the database. I think it is, Johan. Did we do that? Did you press that upgrade thing?
Some, like any of us did. I'm not sure who did, but I don't see that button any longer, so it's been pressed.
Okay, somebody. Okay, well we're fully in. We've committed. So it turns out it didn't really break anything. There was nothing to fix except for the theme, which Johan went and applied a new one to. So the CI release machine is running Jenkins 2.7 now, which is LTS, and we might want to consider upgrading CI soon-ish, given that it seems to be good.
Yeah, I'd certainly noticed
Aside from that,
different.
I do think yeah, that's mainly because of the theme that was applied. So it's not because of Jenkins 2, it's because it's been themed. Although I believe Jenkins 2 makes that easier. And Johan also suggested we could get the website folks in to help us to theme one specifically for Node. I don't know whether it's glamorous enough work or not to do that, but we could try. Aside from that, I don't think I've got anything meaty to report from my end. So who wants to go next?
You did the nightly stuff with the crumb.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, nightlies are working again now. We sort of need a better way of knowing when nightlies are not working, because it's not the first time that nightlies have stopped. So I'm thinking about that. But yeah, nightlies started again because of we had cause stuff enabled on Jenkins, and that stopped the trigger from working. So I had to code up some new cause stuff to get around that. Okay, who's next?
I'm next in the list, so I'll go. So just as Johan mentioned, general work to keep the PPC machines working. I added S390 to the V8 nightly test jobs for Master Plus, and did the same thing for the regular regression jobs, since once we moved up to a new enough level of V8, so they seem to be running without any problems. It's currently, if you launch them against an earlier version, I created the job, so they'll basically just skip the tests and report it as passed. I do want to get time to check out configuring the email server for notifications on failures, which I haven't done, but we're also expecting the new AIX machines anytime now. Once they actually show up, Gibson and I will start to configure them. And I'm currently adding some test machines from a new OpenStack environment, OSU OSL. It's a new node and newer versions of the software, which we're hoping will make things more stable. And it's basically they've configured a test one, so we can add some machines, validate that they work. And there's some other teams that use the same environment. We're going to do the same. It does sound like we're going to have to rebuild our machines once the actual deployment takes place, but that's not so hard with Ansible. So hoping this will give us some relief from the issues we've been seeing. That's it. I think Jao is next.
Yes, I just went to visit the new Jenkins 2 and found out that TMSI is broken in Windows, so that's next for me. I haven't done much in builds. I've been monitoring the hard drive, the shared hard drive that the Raspberry is used, because the new test binary ARM job that I did was filling it up. I'm still looking for solutions, because using git clean takes 5 minutes out of each job and it's not needed. I'm thinking of just checking the hard drive space and running it if it's too low. And Miles?
Hello. So, as I was talking about earlier, I got the first pass of the JUnit reporter done for Canary in the Goldmine, which gives us a good idea of ways that we could speed up things as a whole. Inside of the notes, I've included a link to the pull request for that reporter. Could use some more eyes on it. Once we have sign off on that and that lands, I'm actually going to be replacing the current Canary in the Goldmine runner that we have with using the JUnit by default. I've been using it in the release candidate and for other releases. There was some weird stuff with XML, but that's maybe sorted now.
I just on that front, like if you're going to change the default, you might somehow try and notify people. I know, we run Canary in the Goldmine, and I suspect if the default just changed, it would break our automation.
So this would not change Canary in the Goldmine at all.
Okay.
The JUnit reporter is behind a new flag. If I end up actually changing anything to do with flags, that will be a major bump rather than a minor, which it's set up for right now. There was a review that was stating there might be a better interface, but what would be changing would be our CI job to use the new reporter instead of the old reporter.
Okay. Yeah. I thought for some reason you were the default itself. So that sounds good. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. No, the reporters are all basically you can give a different flag for a different reporter in Canary in the Goldmine, so it's just a new flag. But yeah, the advice was maybe putting all the reporters behind a specific reporter flag, but that would come in a major release, not in a minor. Then Still not a ton of work, but just did a little bit more of playing around with the parallelized version of Canary in the Gold Mine. There's just some weird stuff in there that I haven't been able to quite.
Was I lost, or was it Miles who's lost?
His mic disconnected, he says.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Well, probably nothing important to say anyway, so should we move on?
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. My mic unplugged. Last thing, I'll be really quick, is just started thinking about how we could use Canary in the Gold Mine for testing changes to binaries, specifically like making sure that there aren't ABI changes in between different versions or specific V8 changes. And then, Johan, I may want to talk to you offline about some of the stuff that I'm thinking about for that.
Sounds good.
And that's it for me.
Okay, so that's the roll call. So I guess we're moving to the agenda of today. The first issue would be inviting Philip J to the build group, and I'll just do a quick background. So Philip is a contributor to both Node Core, the GitHub bot. I think he's part of some website groups as well, and just generally active in the Node community. He's very active as part of building the GitHub bot that does maintenance on our pull requests and issues, and seeing how we're kind of slowly diminishing in terms of workforce. I would like to invite him into the build group, mainly to help out with like test stuff, but also take care of the deployment of the GitHub bot and also help us automate that. So I think we don't have like a formal thing for voting and stuff, but this would probably be a good time to decide whether we want him part of the build group or not. So if there's anyone abstaining, feel free to, or voting no, feel free to voice your concerns now. So that means that everyone is in favor?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Sweet. So welcome, Philip. He's on vacation right now, but he's probably having a beer somewhere and celebrating, so that's cool.
Congratulations.
Indeed. I can take care of onboarding. The plan was to do an onboarding with Imran a while ago, but that never happened. So I'll try and do it this time and kind of figure out what the baseline of knowledge we need to spread to people joining the project is, and then I'll try to put that into some kind of guide we can have as part of the build group documentation.
Sounds good.
Cool. Moving on to issue 75, which is Alpine Linux or the Docker build, and that's Rod.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember why this was tagged. Hang on. Hans Christian put it on the agenda.
Looking at it, it looks like it's been around for a while, so it might just be one of those like checking in on progress things.
Okay. Or 14 days ago, I put it back on. Okay. So the thing is that so we've got test passing for Alpine Linux now. The Docker folks would like to be able to ship images with it, but their workflow for shipping images has been to download binaries off our website and use those, rather than build them themselves in containers, because it sort of wastes space and takes too much time and is not ideal workflow. But they can't use the binaries we ship now because they need to be compiled against Musel. So this, I guess, it's on the agenda because we need to consider if there's any way we can support that. I've been pushing back on shipping Musel binaries in there for this, because it's like once we start doing it for x64, we're going to be asked to do it on for other architectures, and then there's other things that we could be asked to add as well. It just seems like a slippery slope to adding lots more binaries. So I'm not sure we can come to a conclusion here because I haven't seen any great suggestions in that thread.
Yeah, I'll add a bit as well. So I've also been pushing back, like making muscle support with semi-official or official. I just think the visibility you've added is great, and if we can keep it like this for a couple of months, and we've had like packagers from Alpine Linux actually contribute and help us improve the test suite and coverage. So I would say this is a step in the right direction, but there's still maturity that needs to be kind of grown.
There might be an alternative way we could do it. Maybe making the binaries, but not putting them in the official location. I don't know if that is pretty much the same as putting them in the official one. But
I was thinking, like, how about just running regular regression tests on them? Like, does that help them at least to know that when they do build?
No, we do that.
We already do that. Okay.
Alpine machine in Jenkins now.
Okay.
This is about binaries because they want to be able to ship. Right. And this is actually a fairly big deal because Alpine is very popular for Docker users, and Docker is becoming more popular, and they'd love to be able to ship them, but their current path is to build them binaries themselves, and that's not ideal. So it'd be good if we could find a way to support them. I don't want to push back just and let that be it. I just don't think that shipping those binaries officially is the way to go. Anyway, I don't think it's worth digging into that too much here. It's more of a awareness thing. So the issue number is 75. Go in there, and if you've got any brilliant ideas on how we can support them, then do it there. Let's move on.
Okay, so next issue would be how can a project qualify for access to the build infrastructure, which is issue 448, and that would be Rod again.
Right, so that was that actually came from a request from Fedor about adding LL Node to Jenkins so that it could have test coverage, and it's becoming a fairly important project. We had Brendan and Greg covering it the other day as well, so it's getting more visibility and could be a very important tool for Node's future. But it's not part of our org yet. It may be at some point, but it's not yet.
One I will be bringing to the CTC because in the last in the last postmortem work group, the consensus was that's our preference. Just as an FYI on that front, but I think the general concept that you have there is still important.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So it's not the only one. And Node Zero Port is another one that's the same sort of boat. We've gone ahead with adding stuff in there originally, but I don't think they're using it these days. But there was infrastructure in there at one stage to help Serial Port. But as other projects come and ask for assistance, how do we qualify them? And so there's multiple concerns here. There's a concern about how much capacity we have, and Johan's been freeing up capacity. We've been getting more from various sources, so capacity may not be a problem right now. But the other thing is the intention of the donors. So when they donate hardware to Node, are they okay with us using it for non-core stuff? And do we risk putting our donors offside by diluting that? So that's the main two concerns I have there. And if we start giving access to some, then we'll get more, and then we're going to have to deal with security concerns for having all these people that we don't know accessing our hardware, and yeah. So that's that. That's issue number 448. I don't know if we. I don't see any progress in that issue that we can really use to move forward with this. But if anyone has any great thoughts here, then let's share them.
I think there was a few suggestions, but I'm not sure. I think they can still be discussed there unless we want to discuss them now.
Miles, you dropped in a thought there about NVM expressing interest, wanting to test on supported architectures.
Yeah, so I had a conversation with Jordan, just trying to figure out, specifically it started with how can we get support for installing RCs and other test releases via NVM. And so he is working on a 1.0 version of NVM, which will be able to do that. But the biggest thing that he doesn't have working right now is the ability to test NVM compiling from source. He doesn't have the architecture that's able to do that. It has something to do with timeouts on Travis. Like Travis just doesn't give him enough time to actually do a build before canceling everything. So we had discussed potentially using the Node infrastructure to run the NVM test suite on the various, infrastructure like architectures that we deploy to. He seemed really interested in it. I had started playing with it a bit, but then ran into some roadblocks with the way the NVM test suite was set up. I have not revisited it since. This was maybe about 3 weeks ago, but it's definitely something I can dig into more and something that he was interested in having. In general, I think for these tools, it makes a lot of sense to be running the tests on the architecture we ship to. So I'd like to see that happen, and I'd also really like to see RC support in NVM, which this testing is a blocker for that.
So to help with security concerns, we could fire up fresh hardware for this kind of thing for shared projects, and then it's yeah.
Yeah, that was my suggestion. That you could make a separate one. You don't get as efficient sharing though, but
yeah, we could also have separate user accounts that run Jenkins slaves on the same machines, but then we don't get the queuing and prioritization.
Well, if we're to do that, we probably need to CH root everything as well to ensure proper isolation, and we need to build the CH root so they get all the features they need. So it's not just adding a user.
Windows.
Yeah. I mean, if this was just testing on different flavors of Linux or something, we could always spin up new hosts on demand. I mean, that's pretty low key for us. I wouldn't have a problem maintaining that if someone needs a host for 24 hours every now and then. But I just think if we're to deploy something throughout our infrastructure, it's a bit trickier.
Yeah, this was also an interesting point that had come up, was at least, the NVM project, and I think this is the case for many projects in the Node ecosystem, kind of treat CI as something that happens on every commit, because, providers like Travis are so sandboxed that they can do that, and that's just not something that we're doing or necessarily want to do. So that, I think, is a big thing for us to figure out, is if people want to come and be using our infrastructure, are they looking for an automated CI, or are they going to be okay with something that's not run for every commit on every PR? Or alternatively, are we open to offering other projects, if they're more sandboxed, the ability to, have it automated?
yeah, that is a good point. That there's different levels of, it's one level to replace their CI, but it's a different thing to say, well, it's not going to replace their CI, but we're going to have our CI do some testing on, their on those extra packages, possibly because we have more breadth or whatever, but not necessarily, replace and run it every time they would run.
So what this had me thinking about was what the release process of these projects are. So that's where Jordan and I were maybe seeing eye to eye that this could make a lot of sense, is maybe it's not a CI that he uses regularly as part of the project, but it's something that can be run against before a new NVM release to make sure, in like the same environments that are like mirrored from the build of our builds, that there aren't new regressions before doing a release. And that could be an interesting way of approaching it to different projects of like, hey, like we have this infrastructure. Maybe it's not that you test every time, but maybe we can come up with some sort of help for a release process.
Yeah, or at some interval.
I'm not sure that really solves any security concerns, though. Because, like, with NVM, sure, we know Jordan, and I think we can be pretty confident there. He comes with Airbnb and TC39, so he's got things to lose if he was to do things wrong. So I think we can, yeah. And same with Fedor, we can deal with that, and we might be able to deal with Serialport as well. But how far do you go with that trust? And when people start coming in with projects that are of similar importance, but we just have no idea who these people are, we have no way of verifying them or trusting them. What do we do there?
But I think that goes directly to the point I was making about not being a regular CI. If this is something that's only happening before releases and we understand the release cadence, we can spin up machines just for that release if they don't need to constantly be running.
That's more, but is that more capacity? It's if you spin up and destroy machines, there is some overhead of doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in terms of our time and. So I could see
Yeah, I mean, security concern is simply giving them access to machines that we do everything else on, and we have keys and other secrets that may be leakable from CI. We have the ability to possibly mess with our CI test runs. There's all these little security problems we'd rather. That's why Travis can work. Travis and others can work is because they do either containers or temporary infrastructure, so they can keep things fairly clean. But we don't do that, and we don't have great ways of doing that.
Mm-hmm. But if they were separate machines that are community machines, but I guess that solves the security concern for us, but not necessarily for others in the community.
Yeah, and then if we have separate machines, then we're running into capacity problems. And are our donors okay with that? That we're running machines on your infrastructure that we're not even testing Node on.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I don't even want to approach DigitalOcean or Rackspace about this, because the more we have to have awkward conversations with them about Node, the more likely we are to run into a situation where they say, oh, that's right, you're running Node on here. We'll have to revisit that.
we forgot about that.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense.
But I mean, again, that could be another one where.
I don't want to say no, but I'd love us to be able to find a creative way here. Maybe temporary hardware is the way to go if we can start thinking about how we might make a more elastic architecture. But that's a pretty big step.
Yeah, I think the most straightforward one would be a separate CI with, then you can even ask the donors, like, do you want your contribution to only be for Node or for these other things as well, or have it clearly separated?
I mean, there's also the fact that, for instance, NVM wanted access to architectures it couldn't test on. So, this would like dwell into PPC and FreeBSD, and that makes it even harder. I mean, if we have, let's say, Ansible has support for spawning images on Rackspace or whatever. Like, it would be pretty easy for us to, someone pings us, we spin up something that's available for 24 hours, I mean, that would work well, but like scaling it onto all our types of architectures, that's really the tricky part here. So, yeah, what would the general need be? Would everyone be okay with just Linux, or yeah?
Well, certainly, like on the PPC and S390, you know, it would be up to us to go back and say, okay, there's this other use case. Can we get additional resources to support that?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
Right, and
this was part of the original vision actually for this infrastructure, so that we could help the. I don't want to. I don't want us to push back too hard on it because it'd be great to find a way forward, but we do have to be very careful.
yeah, I'm certainly interested, you know, from the perspective of it's difficult for people to build across all the architectures. So if this is a way to get access for people, you know, for projects that are important to Node and the ecosystem, it's more realistic than each of them building out their own infrastructure, right, and including power and S390 and all that.
Okay, how about we move the discussion back to there for now, and we can keep it on the agenda.
Sounds good.
Cool. So moving on then. OSX Billboard CI call to action, issue number 367, and yeah, I'll just do a quick catch up there. So since last time, not too much activity has occurred. I've been kind of talking to Doug at Redfin, sent an email to. Since it's been, I think it's 6 weeks now since we last spoke, my suggestion was to just try to do a quick catch up and like, you know, figure out where the point of differences were. So there was a few things you raised during that call in terms of security, access, and so on. So that still needs to be wrangled out, and that's pretty much where we are. Hopefully we can resume that work pretty shortly and just make progress. But I wish I could say more, but that's pretty much where we are at the moment.
Johan, just to recap, if we go with the paid option, the $800 a month estimate is for the setup that you outlined in the original post of that issue?
Oh yeah, that's correct. So the $800-ish or whatever it was is for like 3 Mac Minis, 16 gigs of RAM, which, you know, gives us, like, I think it's 1 terabyte per mini, which gives us like a lot of leeway for creating whatever VMs we need. And the beauty was that they also had VMs already, like different versions of OS X already available through their VMware, which means it's simpler for us to deploy it.
Yeah, that's very nice. So that they're already virtualized. So if we get Mac Minis, we can just fire up VMs as we want.
Yeah,
right?
they install the VMware server or something. I haven't used it much, but it can't be that hard. So
nice. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I know I've got some action items here to follow up with some people about it.
okay, cool. Well, we'll push it forward as we do. I'm good with that. So unless anyone else wants to bring something up, let's move on. So next issue would be the rsync endpoint to mirror the releases, which is issue 55. And I've already brought most of that up in my stand-up. So we're pretty much there. And what remains to be done is just to deploy a script on our main host, Node.js.org, that pushes to rsync host on deployment and through a cron job. And besides that, we're pretty much done, unless we should have another round of discussion with regards to end of life. But the problem right now seems to be that there's no good alternative for rsync in terms of simplicity of use, automation, but with the encryption. So that's pretty much where we're stuck at the moment. So yeah, moving on from that, then finally run and deploy the Node.js GitHub bot issue 404, which is what Philip is missing. But just to summarize the issue, it is about how do we deploy the GitHub bot, how do we handle the shared secrets, because it needs access to the main GitHub organization, and we'll likely also need elevated access to Jenkins CI or CI release, and perhaps other endpoints, which makes the security issue more important. The suggestion we said just at the end of it was to deploy what we have at the moment, because it doesn't need that much security access, only like reading to the organization and being able to post to issues or PRs. What remains to be done here is pretty much someone writing the Ansible stuff to get it up and create a VM to deploy it. And I would very much like that to be Philip, seeing how he is now a member, and he will be working on this.
Yeah,
so
cool.
when he's back from... Sorry.
So will we come back and discuss permissions for Jenkins when that comes up, or is that part of this bundle now?
I would say that's an ongoing discussion. So initially we'll deploy what they have with the limited security access, and then we need to figure out the rest of it together before we make anything else in terms of access to security related issue.
Sounds good.
Cool. Michael also raised something here.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one question. I may have asked this before and forgotten the answer, but I'll ask again anyway. In terms of the AIX machines, it would be nice if there was somewhere I could store binaries that Ansible could pull from, because we don't have the same, easy access to external repos where we can just pull things down and install them. And I'm, wondering if we already have a machine where we do that, or and if not, if that's the kind of thing we think would be reasonable to do or not.
Well, we do use the Jenkins machine in a couple of creative ways already. One of them is that in a bunch of machines that I've set up, I actually, and in all the Ansible setups, they pull the slave.jar from there, so there's already downloading some binaries from there. The other creative use is the OS X machines currently use that machine as an SSH tunnel for an HTTP proxy, which runs on that machine to get around some network issues we have with Voxer. So we could reuse that machine to serve binaries if you need to. Like we could just put. I think we're already running Nginx on there, so you could put another path.
It would just be like if we could. Okay, if we just had some way that sounds like I could easily wget them from there, and
if they're not something that needs to be protected, that would be easy.
There are things that I've basically there's this site called Bull Freeware where you can go down and pull down AIX binaries for different releases. From there, though, you have to prove you're not a robot kind of thing.
Right.
So I can't just script that easily. So I don't think they're anything that we need to protect people from getting at necessarily. We don't necessarily want to be a distributor of them. Ideally it would be something that's available internal to our CI only.
Johan, what do you think about putting them on the Jenkins main CI machine?
Yeah, we do that, or just spin up another machine. I mean, we have room. I don't have a strong opinion. Either works for me.
I guess in terms of backups, do we have a backup for Jenkins versus if we spun up a new machine, then we just need to figure out how to worry about backups. Although that I guess we could manually recreate if we had to. Yeah,
I'm happy to do it on the main Jenkins machine. I guess for sanity reasons, we're there pretty often, and we have a pretty good track record on what's going on there. So,
and we also have backups from there, so
yep.
we could actually add it to the backup scripting.
That's kind of what I was thinking. If it's already covered there, then it's good to just add it in. So, I mean, in terms of limiting to just be accessible through the internal CI, is that easily doable?
You could put some basic auth on it, if you want.
Okay.
That'll be.
I mean, I think it'd be as simple as as long as I guess our CI is spread across different.
Actually, you could just put. If it's just for AIX, you could just put a like a rule in Nginx to block it to a certain IP range.
Yeah, just the ones from our. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So that's what I suggest. You
Okay.
use Nginx to petition off a path that does this, and then put the creativity in there.
Okay, we'll do. Sounds good. I'll work through Git a Git issue to figure out exactly what we do there.
Sounds cool. Well,
Do we have anything else?
that seems to be it, unless someone wants to bring something up. I think the next meeting is August 9th, same time, same channel.
I did wonder whether, since we've got constraints with people's availability, whether we should consider a less frequent meeting time, or is this one too infrequent as it is, or you want to discuss that? I was thinking mainly of Alexis here and also myself, but maybe Alexis just can't afford to come in general.
We can check with him. So are we adding a week, or are we adding 2 weeks, or?
Well, maybe once a month. I don't know. We seem to do a lot of stuff via GitHub and IRC anyway, so I'm not sure these meetings are that productive.
It's mostly repeating ourselves, so yeah.
What are they now? Are they every 2 weeks or 3 weeks? I can't remember.
3 weeks.
2. Oh, 3. Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's not so bad after all.
Wasn't it 3?
I thought we were 2.
I was thinking it was 3 myself, so.
Well, either or.
Okay, well, maybe 3 weeks is not so bad.
If it's not 3, we should just say it's now 3, right? And
okay.
Yeah.
No, I just looked at my calendar, and whoever has been managing the calendar has managed every 3.
Okay. I think it's 3 too.
Well, that's fine then. I can get up early every 3 weeks, I think. Okay.
Well, that's that. I'll add a bit of notes saying that we're not changing things. Cool. That's it for today. Thanks, everybody, for participating, and welcome, Gibson. Hopefully you'll get to speak soon as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome.
Cheers.
Cool.
okay, talk to you guys later.
See you guys.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.